let me ask a question of Mr. Farah first, and that has to go to the question of young Somali Americans that Al-Shabaab attempts to recruit. Are there particular types of young men that, for which they have a greater incidence of success when they're trying to recruit? What's the target?
Al-Shabaab is targeting the disenfranchised youth. That's their tactics, and that's the game that we need that we're playing here. We need to be able, the youth in the community. There's a lot of underlying issues. Radicalization doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, and so what we need to do is really try to engage the disenfranchised youth that are missing, whether it is jobs, whether it's lack of mentorship. Those are the youth that Al-Shabaab is targeting, and that is the core issue here. That's what we need to target.
I just finished Ed Hussein's book, The Islamist. I don't know if you've read it yet, but it's a very interesting perspective on this issue. Let me ask you about how you would assess the U.S. government's anti-radicalization efforts, and I'll probably ask Mr. Borelli the same question.
My assess in regards to what our government is doing in terms of Al-Shabaab, we're very good at the external work, in terms of military going after terrorists across the world. But what we need to do is within the community, our federal government must invest local entities like Kajog to do more engagement, more work. What happened over a week ago shows me and shows us in the community that we need to do more work. So what I would suggest is that our federal government must invest local entities and must empower local entities to do more work within the community and across the nation.
Thank you, Mr. Farah. Mr. Borelli, your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Number one, I do agree with Mr. Farah in that the federal government needs to invest at the local level. We've seen that these recruitment efforts are hatched at the local level. They start with local grievances, and the best way to stop that message, to counter that message, is by credible voices in the community. I'm not sure that the federal government has really a good strategic plan yet for doing that. In terms of kind of CVE, we've seen that many different agencies within the federal government have a role in the CVE, in countering this violent message, and in some cases it seems to be a bit disjointed and disconnected. We've also seen that a lot of this responsibility has been put on the backs of law enforcement, FBI and Homeland Security, and sometimes that may not be the best messenger to be working on CVE when, on one hand, you're trying to bridge this gap and build this trust and develop a dialogue on Monday, and then on Thursday, your counterparts from your same agency are in the community making arrests, putting sting operations together. So you have sometimes opposing forces that have different agendas, but within the same agency. So I think this is something that we also should be looking at closely.
Thank you, Mr. Borelli. Dr. Jones, in past hearings, we have learned of various networks, some of them affiliated with Al-Shabaab, involved in smuggling Somalis into the United States. And I was going to ask you if this is still happening, and I was going to ask you for what purpose would Al-Shabaab smuggle people into the United States?
Mr. Chairman, my understanding is the pace of smuggling and actually individuals leaving the United States has likely decreased somewhat over the past probably 2 years. But I think there's an interest in recruitment and fundraising in the United States within the Somali community, the Somali American community. So the primary reasons for bringing people in are to recruit, to go back to Somalia, and to fundraise, and to ensure that there is money that is going into the pockets of some cash-strapped members of Al-Shabaab.
In the past, how were people brought in to the U.S.? How did they make access into
one of the primary routes was through the U.S.-Mexican border, through the southern route. If somebody has a legitimate passport and his name does not come up, you can fly in. But other than that, a primary route is through multiple border crossings along the U.S.-Mexican border.
Thank you. We're going to go to Mr. Elliot Engel from New York.